Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and I'm not alone. I'm joined by neither Xeon nor Felix. I'm joined by Mr. Jim. Hello, Jim.
Hello there, Alex. I am neither Xeon nor Felix, which I'm very sorry about, but hey, I'm sure I'll be a good stand-in.
Yes, so Jim is one of our writers on the website. Go and check out nintendolife.com, you fools. Last night, Jim and I watched the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and we want to talk about it, basically.
We both have feelings.
We have feelings. We have feelings, and we're going to express some of those feelings for you today. We're going to try and keep things relatively spoiler-free, and also, just to clarify, the reason you're not seeing any footage from the film is because we don't want the video to be taken down because we've used footage of the film. Even trailers, like, it's getting spicy, I tell you that. So enjoy this unrelated footage. But anyway, Jim, you and I, we both saw the film, and yeah, we saw the film all right, didn't we?
We did. This is certainly going to go down as one of the movies in 2023.
It is. Long-term viewers of the channel may be wondering why we haven't been covering it that much. Like, we have a little bit, but I mean, certainly I personally have not, because I did not have the highest hopes for it, and having not seen the film, I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer and to be sort of saying, oh, I think it's going to be, rubbish, just, based on the trailers. I thought I'd just wait and see the film and see what I think. And you know what? It was better than I expected.
Yeah, you were very down on the whole thing as we were heading in, and I, meanwhile, was like a little excited puppy, just eager to get in there and see it. And both of us have come out, I feel like, in a middle point.
Yeah.
I was slightly let down. It exceeded your expectations a little, so...
I mean, exceeded my expectations, considering that my expectations were, I'm going to be honest, rock bottom. But I was genuinely quite pleased. Like, I mean, there was all this sort of worry about, oh, it's Chris Pratt and stuff like that. Honestly, the performances were largely just fine. I didn't really have a problem with most of them. I mean, I still think Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong brought absolutely nothing to it. I feel like it was a really underwhelming performance, to be honest.
There are a couple of people in there where you kind of have to question, did they know which film they were making when they made this one? Seth Rogen, does his thing. Nothing could have prepared me for quite how much we were going to see Cranky Kong in this film. I was not prepared.
I thought Cranky Kong, he's going to, appear a bit, but he was in it almost as much as DK, frankly. And
he has far more lines than Luigi.
Yeah, he does. And can I just say, he wasn't that cranky.
He was not that cranky, and his voice changed from scene to scene. It's as if Fred Armisen had kind of settled on a voice in week 1, and then week 2 went, hey, maybe I could try something else. And they just never went back.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was like maybe re-recorded lines. Like, the lines in the final film that we saw in certain instances didn't match up to the trailers, which I know is not unusual, but like they were slight variations, which struck me as, like this was being changed down to the wire.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I think also it's the case with these kind of things where they have multiple cuts of the lines, and some of them sound great in a trailer. When you need Mario to say, where are we? That sounds great in a trailer, but in a film, in the actual film itself, in the context, the heat of the moment, you just need a simple where are we?
Yeah.
I can understand it.
I mean, I don't think that line's in the film, but I understand what you mean. I wrote the script down as I was going, because I like to be
this
thorough.
is true. You were scribbling away throughout the 92-minute runtime.
But one thing that did actually please me about the film was the set pieces. The environments were largely, I thought, really, really quite good. I wasn't sold on the idea of like, hey, I'm from Brooklyn. I've just gone and done the voice. I meant actually Brooklyn as a location. But actually, that opening part of the film was one of my favorite parts. Like,
yeah,
it grounded everything. It felt realistic, except they threw Foreman Spike in there for, let's be honest, no reason.
Yeah, I thought that it was great. I mean, just very quickly, you can't pull me up on my lines and you hit me with a line such as, hey, I'm from Brooklyn. Come on, that isn't in the film. But no, I completely agree with you. The first act, that opening kind of 10 minutes where it's just given the chance to sit with these characters, regardless of the fact that it never really settles on the age of the guys, it's good fun. It's good fun. It's absolutely packed full of references. Like, you sit there like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Every 30 seconds, you're pointing at the screen saying, I understood that. And when the film has that chance to just kind of sit with the characters, slowly introduce the plot, it's good fun. It's a shame that it hits the gas really, really quickly as we head into Act 2.
I think it sort of accidentally engaged the turbo and doesn't know how to turn it off. Like, the intro, the pacing was good, and then as soon as Mario gets to the Mushroom Kingdom, the pacing just flies out the window. Like, I still have to remember that Toad was in this film, because he appears early on, and then he just sort of tags along for a bit, and then he's just kind of essentially redundant. Like, there's very little in terms of character development, and I've been sitting on this for a while. I'm just going to say it. The writing is absolutely all over the place, and not in a fun way. It's inconsistent. You know, there's no sort of, I don't want to say logic to things. I don't mean like, oh, that doesn't make sense in reality. I'm not going down that road, as I've seen somebody already, a reviewer, saying that, no, they didn't explain how the mushrooms work. And it's like, it doesn't matter how they work as long as it's consistent. And they were. But the writing wasn't consistent. You know, it's like they turn up and it's like, oh, Bowser's coming, we've got to prepare. And then Mario bursts in and he's like, my brother's in trouble. Can I come with you? And they're like, only if you can complete this obstacle course.
Which, might I point out, he can't complete.
Yeah, he does. Spoiler, he doesn't complete it.
He spends one night working on his skills and goes from no skills at all to all the skills. Yeah. And yet still it's not enough.
I hasten to point out also, they do all this, what they, I think is considered training rather. I mean, Peach says, you can come with me if you complete this course. And it's like, and then she completes it because, you know, she's lived in the Mushroom Kingdom and grown up there. She understands it, you know, it makes sense. And then Mario goes to do it. Oh, he can't do it. Okay, makes sense. But then they dither around with this, seemingly for an entire day, and they were just moments before they were like, Bowser's coming, we've got to go and help, we've got to get the Kongs on our side, and then they're just like, nah, this man I've just met, let's see if he can be of marginal use.
I think that my problem with the script, and I mentioned this in our review over on NintendoLife.com.
Oh, check it out.
Yeah, check it out. You should really check out that site. There's some good stuff on it. I think that my problem with the script is, as the film goes on, the kind of hand-holding that the script does just plays a more and more important part. There's a section at the end, and it's no spoiler to say, where we see Bowser's ship appear on screen, and one character goes, there's Bowser's ship. And I'm thinking, I know that's Bowser's ship. You don't need to tell me this. There's so many instances where something happens on screen and then a character tells you what's just happened on screen, and that's just unnecessary. Yeah. We don't need that. We audiences are intelligent. You know, we can work things out for ourselves.
We're literally watching it with our eyes, and I know, and this has probably already happened from what we've already said, but people will immediately leap to the conclusion, oh, it's just a kid's film. It doesn't matter. You know, you don't need. And I've seen, you know, sort of people say, why were you expecting, like, or hoping for a deep plot? Mario isn't known for plot. And it's like, this is a film. The games aren't known for a plot because they're video games. It's gameplay first and foremost. And I am not, before you go to the comments and you say, Alex, why on earth would you want this to be about the Stalinist purges or a lens grinder from Omsk? I'm not expecting a deep, like, intricate plot from anything like this. You can have a simple plot with a good, solid narrative, and that's the difference. Like Toy Story, for example, it's a children's film. It was very early on. I think they had significant problems with development. It's got a very simple plot. There's a toy, new toy appears, he's jealous. Oh, he's got to learn to live with not always being in first place. That is a very simple plot, but the narrative takes it in interesting directions, and it makes it engaging, enjoyable, simple for children to understand, and still stands up today. I mean, the CGI, slightly less so, but better than it should.
Completely. It's very easy to palm these sort of things off as it's a kid's film, so therefore we can excuse it for being bad at parts. And that's just not fair. Plenty of kids' films are fantastic films as well. Paddington 2, there's a reason why Paddington 2 is one of the best films ever made. And objectively, it's a kids' film, but there's enough stuff in there, it's meaty enough, that everyone can watch and enjoy that film. In the case of Mario, there's so much stuff, quote, for the kids, that I think people are going to start to think, hey, maybe that's a reason why we can look past some of its worst elements.
Yeah, I mean, Paddington 2 is a really interesting example because, yeah, it's one of the highest rated films of all time or something. And I think that's because it has something for everyone and it's very inoffensive. It's not high cinema. There are far better films out there. But, you know, like the Grand Budapest Hotel, which I highly recommend. Basically anything Wes Anderson. But at the same time, the Mario film doesn't do that. It doesn't. It tries to appeal. It comes across as though it's trying to appeal to as many people as possible, but in the process, it ends up actually limiting its appeal.
I think what we should add as well is that yes, the script is kind of lacking in parts, and perhaps that's a way that people are gonna go against this film. But there is a lot of good Mario stuff in there.
Yeah.
The number of references, like we just pointed out, are incredible, and the world looks like this is a Mario world, and it is filled with Mario things, and it does that really very, very well.
Yeah, I think there's still some areas that are a little bit, I don't want to say lacking, but sort of just a little bit inconsistent. But overall, I was actually, from the visual side of things, not so much the animation, but that's an Illumination thing, but the actual art direction was really solid overall. Like, there's this moment where you first see the Kong place. Do they ever actually name it? They just say they're going to go and see the Kongs, and then never... Is it the Kong Kingdom?
Is it not called the Kong Kingdom? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'm going to call it Donkey Kong Country. They go to Donkey Kong Country, and they open the gates and stuff, and this Kong greets them. Well, not so much sort of greets them, but there's a bit of an altercation, and then he gives them a lift there, and it's like showing this, their world, and it's all based around vehicles. They drive everywhere. Everything's fast and hectic and violent, and it makes no real sense for a city to be like that, but it's consistent in it, so it actually works really well. I actually saw it and I was like, I genuinely really like this. It was an excellent moment. I don't even think it hung around too long. I don't think it, didn't hang around long enough. It was just there for the right amount of time, and then boom, they move on with the story beats, and it's boring again. But that moment was really solid, and I do feel that the references that they use, I mean, there's a load of background detail, and that stuff's good. But a lot of the references, they do kind of it does feel like you're being slapped in the face with a slice of ham. Like, it's just like, as in, I'm trying to say it's ham-fisted. It feels very like, reference, and it leans quite heavily on that, and I enjoyed it in places, but I got a bit tired of it as well. Yeah,
I think that the background stuff works really well, because whilst it's sitting in the background, it's very easy to ignore it. There are people that are gonna... I was sitting there and I was trying to notice every single thing that I can, because that's the way that my brain works, and it brought me joy when I saw something that I thought, other people might have missed that one.
Punch-Out Pizzeria?
Punch-Out Pizzeria. Anyhow, there's plenty of those little details which I think are great, but then, as you say, there are other details which are really screamed at you. There's one moment with a blue shell where somebody actively shouts, "Blue shell!" as if we didn't understand what the blue shell meant. And let's admit it, the people that are watching the Super Mario movie know a fair amount about Super Mario in the first place.
It's the one of the highest grossing. I mean, it's the best-selling game on Switch by a country mile. And I mean, we could all see it coming. And I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be. Is he going to throw it as himself? And then it just he just screams blue shell, and it's like, no, you've ruined it. You've ruined the surprise. We know it's going to be the blue shell. He's going to essentially throw himself at it. Okay, he didn't need to scream blue shell. As you say, it's hand holding. It's saying, look, audience, it's the blue shell. It's like, it's a shell. It's blue. I know.
I think that some of the best references come in the score. Brian Tyler's score.
Oh yeah, the score is mwah.
The score is absolutely fantastic, and Brian Tyler does such a good job of sometimes hammering home these big main themes. We've all watched the trailer and have heard the big Super Mario theme play in this massive orchestral arrangement at the end. That's incredible. But there are so many times throughout the score where Tyler kind of sprinkles in these little motifs from the game. I caught a little bit of Luigi's Mansion at one point. There's one underground moment where the score goes do 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 do. And I thought, yes, I understood that reference. There are so many parts where he's just sprinkling in little things, and it's so much fun to pick up on those alongside, obviously, the big, grand statements. I think those little ones are so joyful, and it really is the star of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when it's unobtrusive like that, those kind of references to, other media or, the same IP, whatever, that's when it really works. Not when you've got one character, and I'm not going to say, sort of the characters' names or anything, but when you've got one character saying, that means you, character's name, and points to a character from, sort of from the video games, and it's like, okay, yeah, okay. You could have just shown them. You could have just shown them. You didn't have to make this essentially it's essentially a waypoint for a film, isn't it? That you can't turn off.
As we've said, there's so much packed into this film that is for the fans, and the fans are going to spot and they're going to really enjoy. It is a shame that because it's a big Illumination and big Nintendo film, and therefore needs to be as easy and pleasing to as many people as possible, that there does need to be that element of, let me show you what a blue shell does. Let me explain what mushrooms do. That kind of thing, which, I mean, it's not necessary, but I'm also very aware that we're talking from the point of knowing Mario like the back of our hands. So maybe there will be some people that have no idea at all what a red and white mushroom does, and no idea at all what a blue shell does. But, I mean, surely there's not that many people, right?
Well, I mean, from the perspective of the mushrooms and the power-ups, I mean, the fire flowers and stuff, they don't explain that. It's self-explanatory. The mushrooms, I can kind of see that one time where it is worth explaining just briefly. They maybe explain it a little bit too much, but I can see there's not that sort of obvious correlation, and it is quite an important power-up. But the whole blue shell thing, you don't need to know that, hey, this is a Mario Kart reference. The audience doesn't need that information. All it needs is, hey, this is an attack. Whoa, that's all you need. You don't need the reference. It's there for the people who know it, but the people who don't know it, they don't need to know it. It's self-explanatory why it's important within the context of the film. Doesn't need to have blue shells screamed at the audience.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's probably a sign of how the story and plotting in this film works, right? It is a film that is completely overstuffed. If it's overstuffed with references, that's because it's overstuffed with set pieces. No amount of peril in this film is allowed to last longer than 2 seconds. A character gets into life-threatening danger, they can't possibly escape. 2 seconds later, they immediately escape. And they go into the next situation of life-threatening danger. And it is that kind of loop where I can understand. I mean, this film is there's definitely going to be a sequel, because the film is going to make an absolute killing at the back office, and with all of that star power attached, we're going to see it. We've got a series on our hands, people. We've got a series on our hands, So I can see that this film is an attempt to squeeze absolutely everything in, so that afterwards they can go, right, which ones are we going to do next? Yeah. And I'm hoping that the Super Mario Bros. 2 can be a little bit more restrained and maybe just focus on one kingdom or just fewer characters. And I think it will really benefit from it.
Yeah, I think they were I don't know, it sort of feels like they had 2 films worth of stuff here, or maybe 1.5, or like a 2 hours long film. I can understand why they didn't want to make a 2 hour film, absolutely. but at the same time, yeah, they simultaneously cram so much in, but do so little with what they cram in. You're getting piecemeal bits of everything, but you don't really hang around on anything. And when they do occasionally hang around on something, like the intro in Brooklyn and everything, I mean, despite the fact that all the other humans just look like Illumination humans, like why can they not do something different with the art style? The art style in Brooklyn is a bit inconsistent when it comes to the people. Like the dog, there's a dog in it, just looks like a dog from The Secret Life of Pets. Not that I've seen it, but I've seen trailers. And it's just like, really? I am actually going to go on record and saying, I think that was a leftover model and they just slapped it in because it was easier.
I mean, I won't pretend to be a world-leading expert on The Secret Life of Pets. However, I too must admit that in that moment I did think, is that the dog from The Secret Life of Pets? You know, in that opening scene, had a minion walked into frame, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid.
No, it's... Yeah, as soon as you get into the Mushroom Kingdom, everything within reason looks great. Cranky Kong's beard, the animation, like the actual movement, not talking about the style or anything like that, but the actual movement, I thought was fine.
I thought for the most part it's fine. There's some big old crowd sequences where some parts are moving more than others, and that's okay. That's how animation works. I understand. It wasn't distracting at any point. But, you know, it was classic Illumination, soft, cuddly, and squishy. Yeah,
it was... Yeah. It was just... I would describe the animation as uninspiring. You know, it's not bad. It's very... They move, you know? There's nothing like... I mean, sometimes there's some interesting movement, but it really is few and far between. And there's no subtlety to the movement, either. It also, everything moves at the same speed. I don't know whether you noticed. Like, everything moves at the same speed. It's all tied to the camera.
Right, okay. I can understand that. One of the... In terms of movement and the movement of the characters, there were some parts that I liked. There are some elements where it goes into that side-scrolling Mario style. And those parts I thought looked really nice. There are bits where Mario and Luigi run with their signature sprinting arms back. There's a part where Donkey Kong does a roll. There's a part where Mario spins while he's in the air. And all of those things, they're all nice and they all look good. And those were the parts that brought me joy in this film.
Yeah, and I wish... Well, I was about to say I wish there was more of that, but at the same time, you wouldn't want it to get overbearing. And doing it a few times in the film is good, but because a lot of it is sort of like relying on using the same camera perspective as a 2D side-scrolling platformer, that could become very stale very quickly. So I think they were right to be a little bit more reserved on that front. But to sum up, would you recommend this film?
I completely would recommend the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So despite having pointed out all of what we consider to be flaws with it, I do think that there is a lot of fun to be had here. When we went to see it last night, there were a number of kids in the audience with us, and they were laughing throughout the entire thing. Like, we can sit here and say that it's overstuffed, which it is, and that the script isn't great, which it is, but the fact of the matter is, I do think that it's a fun time. It's completely harmless. It's not going to change your life in any way. This is no Citizen Kane, but we didn't really need it to be a Citizen Kane. I just think it's good fun, and if you wanted to switch off your mind for an hour and 32 minutes, then you know what? There are certainly worse ways to do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually recommend this film, to be brutally honest. I know, I fully agree with you with what you say. It's not meant to be, sort of a groundbreaking piece of cinematography or anything like that. It's not pushing boundaries. It's not doing anything we haven't seen before. But also, I left it feeling kind of empty, and I have to keep reminding myself what happened, because so much of it is just not memorable. And I mean, there are bits, don't get me wrong, there are bits, but so much of it just feels like filler. Just, sort of people going from A to B, and when it comes down to, sort of people spending their money to view something like this, I don't think it's worth it. I've got to be honest. I don't think it's worth it.
You do make an interesting point. The cinema is an expensive trip these days.
Yeah.
And perhaps going and seeing this on this is not a film that benefits from the biggest possible screen with the biggest possible sound. We've said that the score is fantastic, and we've said that the worlds look quite tasty as they go through them, but no tastier than they're going to look on your TV at home when it inevitably comes to streaming within the next few months.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to watch it. If it was available, I mean, I don't know what platform it's going to end up on. We can make some predictions, but I don't think any announcements have been made. If you can view it on a streaming platform that you're already subscribed to, yeah, whatever, go for it. But I wouldn't go out of your way to watch it. Let's put it that way. Is it worth seeing it at the cinema? Nah, not for me, to be honest.
I would agree with you.
Well, you know, nice to end on a nice positive note, isn't it?
Hey, let's be clear. I do think that this film is a fun time. You can be grumpy about it, and that's okay, but I think that it is still a fun time, albeit one that isn't going to change your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am actually more critical of films than games, because when it comes to games, you get, you to a degree, you get as much as you put in out of it. But with a film, it's a passive experience. So in my mind, it has to hold up to higher scrutiny. Maybe I'm just a snob. I don't know. But either way, yeah, it's the sort of, I don't regret seeing it. Let me put it that way.
I'll stick that on your poster. Elimination, if you're listening, put that on your poster. Alex Olney does not regret seeing it.
But at the same time, I wouldn't bemoan anyone for enjoying it. I think that anyone who claims that it is seminal is maybe, let's be kind and say, misguided. But anyone who enjoys it, if you just have fun watching it, go for it. I don't mind. You know, it's inoffensive.
It is inoffensive, and I think that, just like you said, those who say that it's seminal might be slightly misguided. I also think that it's unfair to completely drag it through the mud and say that this is dreadful, because there are things to be enjoyed here.
Yeah, I enjoyed some bits. I did. I don't think I laughed at any of the jokes, but I was also very pleased, very, very pleased. There are no fart jokes, and I was so expecting there to be some.
You are correct. I can't say that I noticed that, actually, but you're absolutely right. There are no fart jokes in this film.
Yeah, which honestly, yeah, gold star. There you go. But anyway, if you've seen the film, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Are we misguided? Are we just two sad old men who don't understand the yeeting and the Mario? No caps. I don't know what I've dug myself a hole, and I'm not going to edit myself out of it anytime soon.
You sounded very young and hip. Very hello there, fellow kids. I like that.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Jim, for joining us on this video. And yes, if you like this video, then why don't you click the subscribe button, guys. There's a subscribe button. Click it. You will have fun. Click the subscribe button. There's a subscribe button. And be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.